In the book Indika by Megasthenes, the Greek ambassador to Patliputra, to India. So in this book Indika, it's mentioned that there were 7 castes in Bharatvarsha, but it was better organized than now with 4 castes. Does that also correspond with our own indigenous sources? What's my view on this? So Megasthenes was the Greek ambassador to India. He was based in Patliputra, present day Patna. And he wrote this treatise, this book about India, about what he observed in India. What kind of society does India have? What kind of geography does India have? It was a very practical book, the kind of book that you will find in a military tactical manual or something. So one of the observations that Megasthenes made was that there were 7 classes of people in Indian society. Okay, what kind of people? What classes of people? 7 classes. First of all, you had philosophers or wise men. Okay, which would include Brahmins and other religious specialists. Their job was to perform religious rituals and sometimes advise the king. Then you had farmers, cultivators. They would produce food, obviously, and they were not required to participate in any war effort. Their job was to only cultivate food, which would be something that serves the entire society. Then you had herdsmen and hunters, people who did animal husbandry, who kept herds of cattle or animals, and also people who hunted. Then you had traders and artisans, craftsmen, merchants, people who were engaged in production of goods and the exchange of goods. Then you had the warriors, soldiers, fighting men. They were professional warriors. They were distinct from other classes, and their job was to only prepare for war at all times and be prepared. Then you had bureaucrats and overseers and magistrates, okay, officials, inspectors, sometimes spies. Their job was to supervise the administration of the society, of the government. Their job was to supervise markets. Their job was to maintain public orders. Police also would have been part of this. And then you had the king's counselors and high officers, the people who were involved in advising the king and running the government at the high levels, and judging various things. Okay, so that's the situation that you had in India. 7 classes of people, and Megasthenes reported that there were no slaves in India. There was no slavery in India. So Megasthenes classified Indian society into 7 classes based on the function that people served in society. Now, does this correspond with our Indian indigenous sources? So India's sources don't mention 7 classes of people in society. If you study various Sanskrit texts, ancient texts from that time period, other time periods, there's no mention of 7 classes of society. The Indian texts emphasize jatis, innumerable jatis in Indian society, classified essentially into 4 varnas, 4 major categories of occupations, but innumerable jatis. That's what our texts emphasize. The 7-fold division is something that Megasthenes came up with. He classified the occupations of people, classified the functions, and he came up with a 7-fold classification, 7-class scheme. So Indian texts don't speak about this. It's also possible that maybe Indian texts did encode this information, but those texts were all destroyed. Because 1,000 years ago, all of India's texts, the majority of India's texts, were destroyed in the destruction of India's libraries by the Turks and the destruction of the universities by the Turks and the burning of the libraries. So maybe that information was there, but it was destroyed. But whatever information we have today, based on the evidence and records that we have today, there is no mention in Indian texts of a 7-fold division of the society in India.